He's like, oh, well, no, it's not a game. Okay.
They did the wave.
Trying to get the wave going. People were like, they don't know what to do. But the nice thing about doing it in giant stadiums is that they have a lot of women able to participate as well. So like some of the upper levels were women, and it was quite nice. My aunt went with her kid, with some of her kids and stuff. But yeah, it is magnificent. One of the speakers said that the Germans during World War II actually had a very specific anti-Talmud. They called Jews Talmud learners, Talmud studiers. And they believe that our uniqueness comes from everything that the rabbis stored in that secret book of the Talmud, and that's what makes us so weird, right? So they had this like anti-Talmud. They beat people because they wanted to beat the Talmud out of them. They destroyed books and stuff. That's what Kristallnacht was. They destroyed the Torah. They felt that if they destroy the Jewish infrastructure. So here there was a Holocaust survivor that got up and he said he remembers hearing it. He was called a Talmud learner, and to see 95,000 people packed in a stadium 70 years after the Nazi Holocaust, celebrating the completion of the Talmud after a 7 year, he's like, there's nothing more beautiful than this. Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai.
So it's quite beautiful. Yeah, there is nothing like it. The amount of Jews that are studying on a regular basis, it's really beautiful. Really beautiful.
Burn all the books I want.
Burn all the books you want. We got more, right? All right. Ze oimer shalavoisai. Right? So, until now, we've been discussing the laws of property, right? And one of the things that we came across that we really did not discuss, and I did not feel like I wanted to discuss it, was that if there can't be an adjudication of a case because of the complications of the legal process, right? Like we said before, the concept of migui is that someone could have made a stronger claim and walked away with it all, but he made a lesser claim because he was being honest. So if he's honest, we have to believe him as an honest person. But if there's only one witness against that, then he's adding something to it that can't really be adjudicated, because one witness can't, and you cannot self-incriminate yourself on a capital theft or something of that nature case. So there's issues with the adjudication process, and we cannot actually rule on it. Then they say it goes back to the status quo, and kol da'alam gavar. Stronger person prevails. Stronger person will prevail. So the Talmud is going to discuss what is this rule of kol da'alam gavar. What does it mean that the stronger person prevails? Yeah.
Exactly. That's what was going to be my question. What is stronger?
So
is it physical strength or in mental capability or?
Depends what?
Who has the biggest sword?
It could be a stronger claim, right?
Right.
Maybe. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Let's take a look. Ownership of property is disputed by two men. Okay, one person says, this one belongs to my forefathers. This is a case that we've seen a few times. And this one says it belongs to my forefathers, right? Rav Nachman said, Kol da'alam gvar, let the stronger one prevail. The court withdraws and allows the litigants to fight over the possession of the property, right? Again, what we're talking about is a case that cannot be adjudicated for whatever reason. If you really want, footnote number 10, it gives a better explanation, but we've discussed this already a few different times over the past few weeks, okay? So the Gemara asks, Umayshna, but why is this ruling here different? From the case of two deeds that are presented before the court, each which records a gift of the same property to a different individual, and each was issued on the same day, right? So there are cases, like we said, another case would be where two people, Shalom, please be careful, okay? When two cases are being presented, two legal documents are being presented about the same exact property. One guy shows up to court with a deed and says that this deed property belongs to me because this property belongs to me, and I'll provide you with the deed. Another guy shows up and he says, this property belongs to me, and I have the deed, and they're both showing deeds on the same property. That's a problem, right? That's a problem. What are you going to do? You could go try and figure out the validity of each one of them, and you can't necessarily go too far back because it's not like they had a recording office or something of that nature. And both of them seem to be legitimate. What do you do now? So why? Yes. So how is this any different than that case, right? Both deeds were reading, let's take a look at 11. Both deeds were written regarding a single property. One stating that the property was given to Shimon, the other stating that it was given to Levi. Okay, two different people. The dates on both documents are identical, so both Shimon and Levi had equal claim to the land. Even if the witness testified that Shimon's document was delivered to him in the morning and Levi's in the afternoon, Shimon will nonetheless have no advantage over Levi because the document does not transfer title to the final moment of date inscribed therein. This is because Shalom and Yassi. Shalom, Yassi, Kinlach, please mach nicht additional Wildkeit. This is because since people customarily omit mention of a specific time of day from a legal document, they mean the document taking effect of the transaction only at the end of the day rather than the moment it was delivered. Hence, since the date on Levi's document coincides with the one of Shimon's, Levi has an equal claim to the land. Okay? They both are identical documents. The Rav Amar Yachleku, regarding such a case, Rav says that you split, divide the property that's being disputed. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says, Shuda Didayane, that the judges, it's out of judge's discretion. Whichever one he likes better. No, not he likes better, just kidding. They toss it to the judge, right? So what does that mean? They award the property to whoever they see fit. Why does Rav Nachman disagree? These two opinions disregard these two opinions, ruling instead of the court withdraw and allows the litigant to settle it in the matter. So the question that we're asking is that we just said that two people come along and claim a property is theirs. One says that it's theirs, and the other says it's theirs, and we say, Kol down gvar, let the stronger person fight it out. Why is two people claiming that a property is both theirs? Perhaps without any additional documentation. Any different than a case where two people coming and having the same exact documentation. Why don't we say Kol down gvar in that case? Why don't we say go fight it out? Why do we have different opinions? One says you split it, one says you don't. So if two people are claiming ownership of a property, they can't prove anything other than both of their claims. Why don't we say split it?
Where's the grantor? The person giving the property? Where do they fall?
It could be that they're passed, could be that they're not around, could be you can't find them. Could be, it depends on what case. Yeah, you're asking about the case with the document. Right, forefathers means that it was earlier than them, right. In the case with the shtar. The one where people are both saying that I own it. Right, this one says it's from my forefathers. This one says my forefathers. The case with the deed, two people show up. Technically, you could go to the owner, right? I guess that's what they mean I guess that's what it means when he says that it goes to Shuddha Didayone, that it just transfers to the discretion of the judge. I guess he can always call in. I wonder why the Talmud doesn't say something over there. But yeah, either way. Yeah, again, you have to realize, like I always mention, the shorter the Talmud, you see this page, 35a, you see how small the Talmud is here, right? Yeah. Here, left-hand side. These 5 lines is Talmud. Everything else around it is commentary on what's going on. Which means that if you have, this is just basic commentary, Rashi and Tosfos. If you had another book that you would take, you go to yeshiva, it's going to be this big, they'd probably have 50 pages just on this Talmud. Because there's so much that comes out of a litigation or a story of this manner and how to adjudicate the cases. So there's a lot of commentary just on these few words. We're just going through the basics.
Somewhere else.
100%, I'm 100% certain that it's covered in somewhere else. Yep. So the question still remains: why is two people without documentation who have a claim on a property any different than two people with a documentation that are identical? Why don't we say in that first case we brought today, two people come along and say the property is theirs? Why don't we say that? We split it. Or why do we just go straight to kol ta'alim gvar? That the stronger person wins. The Gemara distinguishes between the two cases. It says like this: Hasam, there regarding the two identical deeds, the case that we brought second today, Leika lemekam Allah lemilsa. It's not possible to ascertain the truth of the matter. Thus, the court arranges a settlement. Hacha, here in the case of Rav Nachman, the first one where two people are claiming and there's no documentation. Ika lemekam Allah demilsa. It's possible to ascertain the truth of the matter. For further evidence may come to light. The court therefore withdraws rather than imposing a settlement that will quit. Possibly, quite possibly be forced to overturn. So, in a case of, let me just take a quick look at something.
That we're considering right now, so. I know, I'm really getting paid to make the freezer for like the sandwich. Okay, I'm gonna do this.
In America, you see quiet title suits. They're called a quiet title.
Will do.
And it's where there is a cloud in the title chain where maybe at one point two people did claim the same piece of property. And it has to go through a judge, and a judge will determine the stronger case prevails.
Right.
It works that way here too.
The stronger case prevails. So that's what we're saying the second time, that a judge has a discretion to figure out what's going on. But in the case where kol da'alim gvar, so kol da'alim gvar, and Talmud's not going to go further into perhaps it will, but right now, the basic idea is like this. The court believes that the case sitting in front of us, the claims are not strong enough to adjudicate. And there's probably going to be more evidence or witnesses or something that's going to come before the court in the very near future that will help us adjudicate the case correctly. So what they do is they say, instead of putting things in abeyance like we do here in this country, where court decisions are put in abeyance, and then they sit and they wait until the court can get around to it or more evidence shows up, and everyone sits in limbo. Here they say, kol da'alim gvar, which is let the stronger one prevail, Meaning whoever takes possession of it first, they're going to be there for now. And when more evidence comes, then we're going to rule on that case correctly. That's what kol da'alim gvar really means, okay? So it's not that the stronger one fights over the next one, or mentally stronger, or whatever it is. Right now, which more often than not is going to be the person that has it in his possession currently. It's probably what that's going to end up being. So we just go back to status quo. Kol da'alim gvar pretty much is status quo. But it's going to be whoever can outsmart the other person to take possession of the item or the field first, they're going to have it for the time being without any issues. But because we feel that this cannot be adjudicated with the current evidence sitting in front of us, we're going to allow that to take place until more evidence comes before us. We are certain, in a case of this nature, that more evidence will come before us.
But someone had to have possession of the property before they even went to court.
Not necessarily. Let's say it's over a boat, like we brought last week, right? A boat is sitting in a marina, right? Sitting there for a few years. One guy decides to jump in it and take a ride, not knowing that a week ago a different guy jumped in and tried to get a ride. Now they both show up together. No one's living on the boat, but they both claim ownership of the boat. So they both go to court saying that it's theirs. So now it's figuring out who can change the padlock first.
Yeah, but this one, it goes back to status quo, neither one, doesn't say which one was on the property first, so should it?
Right, so if someone wasn't on the property first, we talked about cases where people are on the property first. These are cases where nobody necessarily is living there right now, but both are claiming ownership over it.
But if you go back to status quo, it should be nobody gets it.
But we're not going back to status quo. We're going back to, one of you probably have ownership,
We have to figure out.
similar to like King David. You asked me if we're gonna have that case today, right? Split it in half. One guy's like, oh, kol da'alim gvar, yeah, let him have it for the next little while. It's very likely that if he let him have it, the guy probably has some bigger right to it. Or he's like, let him have it and hang on there for a little while. I know I have evidence somewhere, I'll dig it up and I'll bring it back to court. in a month, 2, 3, and I'll take care of things then.
So in other words, who has the fastest horse or cart
Who has
can
a
get there?
correct. Who has more gas in their tank, whatever it might be, right? Yeah, you came across something about Kol Dal Nevar much different than that?
No, I think that's the meaning of it, is that whoever has the stronger claim right now by closer possession or can get to closer possession, that's the strength that's talking, I think, is the strength of your claim by possession.
It's still odd though, because the text as a whole says the difference between the two cases is in the one case, there's no evidence whatsoever. So you rule Kol and Var because you recognize that evidence may come to light at some point, and for that reason you withdraw because you don't want to look bad. Whereas in the other case, you do have some evidence, but it's not of the type that could ever allow you to decide, so you
You can't decide in favor of one, but the evidence that is being presented is clearly legit for both. So what are you supposed to do?
So I don't understand why you don't withdraw in that case too, because further evidence, another document could come to light, or a document to the effect that the first one of the documents was fake. So
It's
that
forged.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is like this, you have to realize, we're not talking about the entire court proceeding right now. There's a court proceeding. They do research when documents are brought, research for the documents are brought. Who are the witnesses on the cases? They get brought into court. Who wrote it? Who else was involved? Maybe the owner of the property is around. And if we cannot figure out that there is ownership to just one, and maybe one is forged, we have validity to believe, we have reason to believe that both documents are true. All the witnesses aren't liars, and they all go through cross-examination. So again, this is a very rare case. And both documents sitting in front of us have been validated to be true.
It's not that rare.
It's not that rare that both documents are gonna be validated to be true?
Both documents can be valid. The guarantor, the person, could have given two documents.
Okay,
The first one to the courthouse wins, basically, right? In America, the first one to file the document wins.
is that fair?
That's the law.
Okay, so we're talking a little more fair then. Two people walk away with property at the end of it because they both have legitimate claims to the property.
The whole process.
The grantor
sounds
could
a
have
lot
sold
like
it twice.
Right.
is what I'm saying.
Probate?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could have. I think also it's kind of true, like what you were asking before about the grantor coming back. Once you have two witnesses for both of them, they both have valid claims, and it's stronger than the grantor saying I sold it to him or sold them, because he's just one person. They have two witnesses, so they have, like, even the grantor himself saying I sold it this one or that one isn't as strong as the guy who said, the other guy who he says he didn't sell it to comes with two witnesses, you sold it to me, and that's a stronger claim.
Yeah.
What distinguishes this is that,
There's no way that
a few weeks ago, we had witnesses that we
Well, yeah, if the grantor is willing
Here,
to
any
sell it
witnesses
twice, he's willing to say whatever.
Right? Exactly.
On the documents.
So he's no out.
In this case, the witnesses, no, so again, whenever documentation comes in front of a court, they're going to do their research to look into it. So we're not talking about that because that's understood automatically. If a document shows up to court and we're going to validate, document is gonna be validated, which means the witnesses are brought in and anything else that's necessary for them to validate. And not only the witnesses brought in, they have to have an alibi of where they were at the time. Someone basically when you have two witnesses, it's not that you almost have like 8 or 6 witnesses at the same time. Because you have to bring in witnesses, because if someone comes along and says, you witnessed for that document? You were with me in Hawaii then, how can you witness? That devaluates a witness automatically. If two witnesses come along and say that this guy was with me in a different country when his name is on a document dated at the same time that he was in that country, that witness is no longer kosher. That document is no longer valid. So there is validity, there's validation that goes into every document that is brought to court. So here we're talking about the end result. Research has been done. 2 documents sit in front of the court. Both of them are dated the same exact date. 2 different people, same property. What do we do? So there's a difference of opinion. One person says you split it. There's validation for both. We split it. One person says that if the judge wants, he can do whatever he wants at his discretion. Let him listen to all the cases because one case is not going to be like the other. And if he feels one person has a stronger claim, he's more than welcome to reward that person with all of it. If he feels that he wants to split it, he can split it too.
And
But
the two
leave it to
people
the
may not
destruction
want
of
it
it.
split. Like I may have bought 60 acres and I want 60, not 30. So
Right.
if you're gonna split it, I don't want any of it.
But
I need 60 acres.
the question though is, the two documents say that they bought, the two documents say that they bought 60 acres per se, yeah. And it could be he doesn't want, you're right. But the nice thing about Torah law, more often than not, is to try and create some kind of harmony for everybody. Not an all win some game that you see so much in our judicial system today. Like you were saying, today, first one in court with the first claim is
may
gonna
not
be.
be fair.
Is probably going to be the one that's gonna be more believed, you know? Which is not necessarily fair at all. Some people don't know how the legal system works, and by the time they do figure it out, they've so incriminated themselves, given up on different claims that they could have made, and whatever it is, and they've been taken advantage by somebody else who's suing them or whatever it might be in court, and stuff of that nature. Yeah.
So if one witness or.
Oh, sure.
You were talking about if somebody came and said, hey, this guy was over here in this country with me at that date,
Yeah.
that disqualifies from just one person, right?
No, I'm not sure if you need one.
Yeah, I said two witnesses.
I'm pretty sure you need two witnesses to say that he was with him, yeah.
Okay.
So it makes-
Two witnesses disqualify, one witness is not gonna be enough.
your
And it
answer-
takes two to disqualify somebody.
There's an entire tractate of Talmud called, what's it called? What is it?
Alias, no?
Eidos, what is it called?
Julio, right?
Yeah,
Julius?
Hurius? And then there's also, what's the one about Edom Zayim?
Oh, Alias name is,
Whatever. It's a shorter tractate of Talmud, but it's all dedicated to how to figure out what a false witness is.
You know, Rabbi, you gotta be, I think, I'm a little bit irrelevant, but I think you have to be a little careful there because I think what you wanna say is that the modern system of judgment and punishment is not even in accord with the New Testament's view because my daughter's Torah teacher at Duke, who's a very learned man, said that there is a similarity between the New Testament and the Old Testament is that they both try to do this, you know, what you do unto others should not be, you know.
Done to somebody else.
Yeah, and here you're obviously struggling for that, and that may be the same in the New Testament, just that the what do you call it, the system of judicial system didn't get it.
Right. Well, our judicial system is not necessarily set up by religious beliefs per se.
Yeah.
It's a lot more of they've taken a lot from what went on before and the evolution of courts and stuff throughout the generations.
That's interesting.
And then they lay out something that they feel fits with constitutional rights and other rights, whatever it is, you know. And then best practices from different countries all over the world. So yes. No. You know, by the way, one thing I want to say, hold that thought. One thing I want to say is that there are many countries that have figured out problems that America's still struggling with. Probably because they're much smaller than us. Much smaller than us, and they can implement certain things. And when you go back, I've heard it a few times, primarily in, let's say, the correctional setting and some of the legal settings that we are trying very hard to pass bills and stuff. And they go back and they take a look at, let's say, Norway or whatever, these different countries that are like excelling in progress with some of their practices, and they go, "Where'd you guys get this idea from?" They go, "Wait a minute, we got it from you.
Yeah.
We got it from the Americans."
Yeah.
Well, it's not what we're doing. Well, this is what you started to do. It just took many different turns, and you're not doing what you originally were doing, you
That's
know?
what Michael Moore's movie,
Where do
Should
we
we
invade next?
Yeah, right.
He
Yeah.
went to all these
He
countries
invades
who are
countries
doing
for their
stuff.
ideas.
And they always ask, where'd you get this idea? And he says, from you guys. 'Cause
Yeah.
you guys dropped the ball.
Yeah,
So what the idea that would kill your idea that whoever gets a court first there's a concept of date of discovery. So let's say you have the second guy, you go to court, you're there first. A month later, I find out, oh, look, I got this deed. So wouldn't that kill the date of discovery if the second person finds it out later? Because
You'd file a suit to what is called quiet the title, clean the title up. So so it has a clear line of progression, right? Anytime that there's a thing called a dresser drawer deed, and we all know what that is, right? Our grandpa gave us the deed to his property, we put it in our top dresser drawer, we never took it to the courthouse. right? But then later on, there was a lawsuit filed somewhere where dad lost part of that land that he gave you a deed for. Because you never took it to court, the lawyers don't know you have the deed, the judges don't know you have the deed. And now you, in order to get your property back, you would have to go to the courthouse, show this dresser drawer deed, and then you were gonna need witnesses and a lot of testimony to make that
And
come
lawsuits
right.
possibly.
I trust it's not notarized.
Right,
A dresser deed would not be notarized?
yeah, dresser drawer deed, it's you're sitting there with your grandpa at the table one night and he says, look, I wanna sign this over to you, and you just take it home and put it in your dresser drawer.
Right.
Because you don't get it till grandpa's dead anyway, so what's the point?
Today, you're supposed to make that legal before you just sign something over to somebody, right? At the very least, notarize it, file it somewhere.
That only gets you so far, but notarizing it is
Yeah.
an important first step.
Isn't, what do they advertise for on the radio these days? That legal?
Oh, legal Zoom.
Legal Zoom, right? It says he is just going on Legal Zoom today, right? And,
I don't know about this lawyer thing, I just bake cookies.
exactly. All right. So the Gemara distinguished between the two cases already, right? And said that the difference between the two cases is that one of them can be ascertained. The other one you can't, which is kol dalam gvar, right? There is no documentation. And two people making a claim, I mean, I would assume that this is something that happens all the time. Guy walks in, this is mine, you know? What are you supposed to do with it?
That when they had claims is when you say split it, and when they don't have any claims, so you
Right.
don't do anything.
Right, no, I'm saying when people are just saying that they have it, they don't have the documentation. The claim is verbal versus documentation. When two people walk in without documentation, I mean, what are you gonna reward them? There's zero proof that any of them even own it or have anything to do with it. So we tell them, just get out of court, do what you were doing till now, figure it out, and when there's more evidence and you could prove something, come back then, right? So more questions the distinction based on the Mishnah. It says like this. Umashna, if that's the case, that we send them out and we tell them, kol dalam gvar, what's the difference in this case? Mashna mahaditran, what's the difference from this case that we learned in a Mishnah? A different Mishnah in Bava Metzia, page 108. You know how I know that? I know the entire Talmud. I'm sorry. Yaakov Zev blew my cover. Note 4 says it.
Just finished the Daf Yomi.
We just finished Daf Yomi. We know it all well. Okay, so it says like this in the Mishnah: Hamachlif para b'chamar. If one exchanges a cow for a donkey, v'yolda, and it calves, it gives birth to a calf. V'chein hamoicher shifchasai v'yolda. Similarly, someone sells a maidservant and she gives birth to a child. Zeh oimer ad shalei macharti yolda. The seller says, she gave birth before I sold her, and the offering is mine. The offspring is mine. While the buyer says that you sold it to me, and then after you sold it to me, they produced offsprings. The case over there, the Mishnah says, Yachleku. Thus we see from the Mishnah, you split it, you divide it. How do you divide it? It says footnote number 8. They divide the value of the calf or the slave child. So they're not cutting kids or animals in half. Okay? You divide the value of what the slave child would be. You divide the value of what a calf would be. And one person takes, the person who probably has the mother or whatever, keeps the animal, and he pays the buyer, the seller, the half the value of what was birthed, right? Okay, so V'zeh omer, Yachleku. Thus we see from this Mishnah that even in an instance where there's uncertainty, you can be resolved by saying, we split it, right? There's no necessarily documentation in this case. One guy saying, there's no documentation on whether or not the child was, because there's no documentation in the sale document, if there was a sale document, and we can assume there maybe was, but about the child birth is not in the sale. It doesn't say I'm selling you an animal and its baby because it just gave birth. It says I'm selling you the animal. And there's no documentation, yet how do we resolve it? We say we split it. So why don't we say the same thing, splitting it when it comes to property, which we had earlier?
Someone's losing in that.
And where?
If whenever you're splitting something, someone's losing.
Depends which way you look at it, if you're an optimist or a pessimist.
It depends on whether you're splitting also.
When you make good with somebody else, you're gaining much more than
But
losing.
even the notes support what he's saying,
That
because
one.
did you read that note where it
Which one?
says, look, if you, the judge, decide to split, then you know you're doing the wrong thing, because the fact of the matter is, one person owns the property.
Correct.
Yeah, either way.
Right, but what you're doing is that you're coming to a settlement, which makes people feel better. And they're happier to move on when you do that.
Makes the person who have.
The person who's gaining is happier.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, but it's also a safer play in the sense that you know that you at least awarded half to the right person instead of awarding the right person nothing.
Right.
Like if you rule wrong, so then the person.
But that
right?
would work if you were, let's say, two people had claim to a lottery. Okay, two people were claiming a lottery ticket.
By the way, that has happened a number of times, when like people go in a pool, in the office pool or something of that nature, yeah.
In the case of, okay, you've got a claim and you've got a claim, let's split it, but in the case of, we're talking about actual property, there is true value that someone has put into that. And that can't be just dismissed, that value that they have in it already.
So that's what we're saying. When two people are gonna claim a property or a calf or something of that nature, and you get, like Yona was saying, that if you reward one guy all of it and somebody else none of it, there's a possibility that the rightful owner is walking away with absolutely nothing.
Yes.
And there's investment that went in. In a case of a maidservant, or a case of a cow, or an animal of some kind, there's absolutely a financial investment that went into that. Absolutely, there's financial investment that went into that. And one person's gonna walk out with absolutely nothing? So that's why they're saying, split it, because that's what makes sense. At the very least, somebody's walking away.
That would keep everyone getting something.
And
It
that's-
may not be the correct thing.
Right, but it's
True.
also fulfilling their claims, right? They have valid claims. They both come up with valid claims to the whole thing, right? So at least you're giving them half of of their actual valid claim.
Well, in this case that we're looking at now with a calf and its mom, or a maidservant and its baby, when you buy it, the owner is not, if he actually sold you the maidservant without the baby, he's not gonna deliver the maidservant and the baby and then claim that he owns the baby. He'll keep the baby and only give you the maidservant. Same way with the calf. If he sold you a cow and a calf, he's gonna present both of them when he sells them to you, or gives them to you. If he only sold you the cow, if the cow had already been born, like the owner said, before he sold it,
So you're saying,
he's not going to
so
present the cow.
if you were a judge, you would rule in favor of the guy that says that it was birthed in my property,
But
if
he's
he
saying in
has it,
favor of
yes.
possession.
possession.
The one that
Clearly they
is
don't have-
in possession.
In this case, they must neither have possession, right? Because if one of them had possession, that would be a strong claim already.
Well,
no?
one is saying it was born while I possessed it, the other is saying, no, it was born after I bought it.
Right, but when they're showing up to the court, if one of them had the calf or the child, right, and had possession of it, then they would have a stronger claim. So like this case must be where neither actually could show up with possession.
Right.
So, like some third party has it and they're both claiming that it's theirs. And that guy agrees that he is, oh no, I found the calf on the side of the road, two people, this one says it's mine, this one says it's mine, they both owned the mother at some point. And now we're like, whose is this?
But if it's the real owner and the seller right there together, the owner's not gonna present something he did not sell.
Yeah, because right here, they say both, she gave birth before I sold her, and the other one says, gave.
So here's
birth after I bought her.
here's why over there, the case over there is like this. The case over there is an interesting case. We spoke about this at different times when how long are we studying Talmud for now? Almost
Oh,
10?
maybe, so 10 years?
You think? Do you think it's 10 years?
Seems like yesterday.
Because we've been studying even at the old house,
Yeah.
my old house we
Maybe-
were studying.
maybe 8 or 9.
Bert's been gone for how many years?
2017.
17. And he came for at least 3-4 years. It's been some time. It's been some time. So we've discussed other cases, right? There's a concept of acquisition that we went through for a while when we were studying Baba Metzia, right? So acquisition works in multiple different ways. How do you acquire something according to Judaism? You take it from domain 1, which is this table, and move it to domain 2. Okay? That's how that's done. What if it's something that I can't pick up or I can't move easily? Like a calf that is in either labor or that's pregnant. Doesn't want to move. no matter how it's stubborn right now, it doesn't want to move. It's a pregnant calf. But I want to sell it. I want to sell it because I don't want to, I don't know what, for whatever reason. So there's a way called, there's chalaftin. Chalaftin is basically a way of acquisition. I give you something that represents the item I'm selling. You give me money, and I tell you, lift this, take it, and lift it as if you are acquiring that item. So you lift it up. The second he lifts it up, that item is now his. So the cow is sitting in my possession, I'm the seller. I sold it to him. He picked it up. Now he's claiming that the cow that gave birth in my possession was sold to him before it gave birth. And the cow is in my possession. And I'm saying, no, it gave birth before I sold it. He's saying it gave birth afterwards. But where is the cow? It's in my possession still. Even the cow he owns is still in his possession because it was pregnant and had no interest in moving.
Okay, that's, you're giving a lot more evidence to the fact than what we were given here.
Right. Well, because this is a case of a Mishnah in a different tractate.
Okay.
So that they're just bringing a few I'm filling in the rest of the information. So like Yeno was saying, that it has to be a case where no one has possession over it. Or if someone has possession, the question of how they have possession is up in the air. And this is why it's up in the air. Okay?
Okay, I can
Makes
understand.
sense. Yeah. That's the case over there in Baba Metzia. So now you understand why they say split it. Because how are you going to prove one way or the other that the acquisition he made with his chalaftin was before or after the cow gave birth? Before or after the maidservant gave birth? I mean, it's going to be very hard to prove that.
Well, I bet the owner from now on starts giving some type of documentation when he sells
Yes.
a pregnant cow.
Yes.
That I keep the calf or whatever.
Yes. So here's one thing that you find very consistent throughout Talmudic, and we've discussed it. Sometimes cases can even be rational, but like the Talmud says, I'm not going to rule on this because loy b'shufti askino. We can't talk. I'm not going to go down a case where it's idiots. If you're an idiot in your business dealings, don't clog the court with your idiocy. Your what is it? Idiocy, right? Similar to this. If you are going to have transactions without witnesses, and you're going to have transactions without correct documentation, then you're going to suffer.
Then you're an idiot.
Yeah, I'm saying, do your due diligence. In America, you can claim, I didn't know, and there's some value to that at times, and sometimes the IRS is never going to say, you didn't know, oh, I'll forgive the $100,000 you owe me. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes in Jewish law, not knowing is okay. Sometimes it's absolutely not okay. If you're going to go into business and you're going to start selling things, and you're going to start clogging the court with litigation, make sure you're doing your business correctly. Because if not, we're going to do our best to reward you something, but you might have to pay half to somebody else because you didn't document correctly.
In this
A benefit to this also, even taking a share when they're both put in a claim for, the entirety, is that you stop future litigation. And this settles the matter forever. And there is
Correct.
certain certainty that you're buying that is a relief to both prospects that they can't come back and relitigate this again.
Right.
So, you've got closure, that's worth something.
Yes. Yeah.
So I've been in situations where we have horses.
And a lesson.
If a mare is pregnant and you're trying to sell her, there's a stipulation that when the colt is born, after it's done nursing, they get the colt,
If you're the seller.
if I'm the seller. So I'm selling the mare, but not the fact that she's pregnant with the colt, that it's mine.
This is accepted law in American law?
Yeah, we did that.
It's interesting.
But it was part of the contract.
It was part of the agreement.
And it could have gone either way. You could have also had a contract that says after you sell if the mare drops the colt after, then it's theirs.
I'm selling you the mare. She's pregnant.
Right.
I'm selling you the
So
mare.
you put in the
That's
stipulation
it.
explicitly.
There's no, she
But,
keeps the mare and the colt.
Oh, if you
But
don't
if
put
you
it in.
stipulate.
Yeah.
Oh, but you have to stipulate it ahead of time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That colt's
Right.
mine.
Yeah. So in this case, there wasn't stipulation. Either direction.
That's like the difference between a warranty deed and a quitclaim deed. What you're saying.
A warranty deed and a quitclaim deed?
Right, one is a deed.
Explain for us,
One is a deed saying, I give up all rights I have at this moment. One is saying, I give up all rights I will ever have to it.
Okay.
The latter is the warranty
Right, the warranty
quit
deed,
claim
quitclaim
is-
is saying, I give up what I've got right now.
today.
I could acquire more in the future and it would be mine. But if I give you a warranty, it means from today and forever, I'll never own that piece again.
Yeah.
It will always, if I ever buy it again, it'll go right to you.
Okay. So the question we have then is, how do we compare, what do we do with this case that we brought about the calf or the maidservant? There they said, there's very little proof about anything, yet what are they doing? They're splitting it. So why can't we do that in the first case that we brought? So Gemara explains the difference between these two cases. Hasam, Lahai, there, the Mishnah, in the case of Baba Mitzvah that we just brought, this litigant, Islay, Deraram, has a clear-cut claim to the disputed money, where? Hassam, the litigant's claim.
35B1, top left.
Yeah. Ulahahu islay derara d'mamayna, and that litigant has a clear-cut claim to the disputed money. Therefore, the court has no choice but to issue a ruling that may not withdraw from that case. Each litigant claim to the offspring stems from the undisputed fact that he owned its mother at some time. The seller prior to the sale and the buyer after it. The question only during these. The question is only during whose term of ownership the mother gave birth. Since each one's ownership of the mother is undisputed, each is said to have a clear-cut claim to the disputed offspring. This fact compels the court to impose a settlement rather than to withdraw. Hacha, in our case that we originally bought, when you have two people saying it's mine and this guy says that it's mine, Hacha over there, I damar loy damar, right? Only one of them could probably be right. The Itamar loy damar and the other one could probably be right. None of them, you can't prove that any of them actually ever had a legitimate claim to the property. Period. So if you cannot ascertain that one person had a legitimate claim to a property, then you cannot reward them with anything.
Who's Rashbam, by the way?
It's just Rashbam was another one of the commentaries.
Okay.
Okay, so how is
When was the Rashbam? Probably around Maimonides
But
times,
that's not
after
Rashi or
Maimonides.
Rambam.
No, different guy. Arisha? What, earlier?
No, the Ashram was an Ashram. Yeah.
Earlier than Rambam?
I don't think so, I think all-
Around similar times, I think.
He's half Rashi, he's half Rambam.
You know, it
We
does
call him
seem to be an
Rashbam.
amalgam of the two names.
It is. There's Rashbam, there's the Ran, there's the Ritva that's brought a lot of times. Rashbam. They really like the Rashbam in general. What's it called?
The Talmud?
Mr. Schottenstein.
Oh.
And even he doesn't have much to do with it. Who's the guy? Nussin Sherman. Nussin Sherman seems to really like the Rashbam. He brings them a lot, although he brings the Ritva a few times as well. You see the Ritva a lot, but the Rashbam is brought a lot. Rashi and the Rashbam. Rashbam was a rabbi who wrote a lot of commentary and adjudicated a lot of cases according to Jewish law using Talmudic law. So you have a lot of that all over the place here. So,
I'm sorry.
what were you gonna say? Go ahead, Bob.
Finish your thought.
That's it. I was gonna go back to where we were.
Oh, yeah.
Now this is continuing from where we were with the sale of maidservant and the
Yeah.
sale of, you know, you're not selling a maidservant and you're not selling a donkey. You're selling a pregnant maidservant and a pregnant donkey, and maybe I'm getting the timing wrong, but they're not just pregnant, they're palpably, I would think they're palpably pregnant. You see the bellies, you know, as a livestockman, you check what you're buying.
So the reason why this case is coming before the judge and why it's being discussed is because you sold it and there was no stipulation one way or the other. What do you do now? Two people are claiming it.
Oh,
You're right. There was no stipulation. So again, the normal situation would be to stipulate, like you were saying, it's normal practice that if you are selling a horse and you want the child, you say, I want the child in a document. You bring two witnesses, whatever it is. But there was no stipulation, so what are you supposed to do? if there was no stipulation. So again, this is like the Talmud's ruling is to let everybody know, similar to what you were saying before, to let one of you know that if, like Steve was saying, you do it and then you don't have to come back. If you don't stipulate, this is the outcome, right? Chacham einav bereishai, or there's even another one that from Mishnah it says, Ezo chacham, who is a smart person? Haroyas hanoilet, someone who sees what's going to take place from your actions. Or if you want to translate it to like how we're reading right now, Haroyas hanoilet, noiled means what is to be birthed out of my actions, right? So if you're a smart person, you stipulate. If you're not a smart person, you don't stipulate. And the other guy doesn't stipulate. And then it comes to court, and you're going to end up having to either pay 50%, or if you're smart enough, maybe you walk away with 50%, knowing that you could have.
So here's another
Call them
aspect of
both
that.
lacking in intelligence since neither stipulated.
Or again, and that's not, you're right.
Diligence, at least.
You're right, but exactly. And also, it could be that they're smart people that just don't do this often enough to know that they need to stipulate. Some of them may have taken for granted and thought, oh, I mean, I fed it, I breeded it, I bred it, right?
Of course.
You know, it should be mine. But so why do I need to stipulate it, you know? Because he doesn't do this often. Or, yeah, what are you gonna say, Ron?
So someone that buys a pregnant animal pays more money for it if they can know who the sire was, especially with horses.
Right.
So there's gonna be a difference in price in the one selling a pregnant one with, a well-named sire,
Yeah.
and then one selling
Right, so let's say it, so, yeah.
Yeah, what was the consideration? Did the consideration match, right?
Right.
Did it match, like you're saying, did
right.
it match?
So
Two
there's
cows
gonna be a
or
price difference
two-
between the two.
two humans or, yeah.
Yeah. So let's finish up this little piece until in here, and then we'll start brand new next week. So Gemara discusses a ruling relevant to the situation in which the court withdraws from a dispute in accordance with Rav Nachman's ruling. Amri Nahardoi, the Nardian, said, who was the Nardian? Imba echad min hashuk, if someone from the street, meaning an outsider, comes inside, vehechzik ba, and takes possession of a disputed property before either litigant can do so, ein maitzunai simiyadi, the court does not take it out of that person's hand. Although he advanced no claim to legitimize his occupancy, neither of the two original contested may oust him from the property because possibly it does not belong to any of them, and this guy has as much of a claim as the other two. So the two people could, what do they call ambulance chasers, right? So it could be there was like stupid claim court chasers. This guy's sitting in a court. He has two people coming in with zero proof that they own the property. He runs and he goes take possession of that property, right? Nobody's going to kick him out because why is his claim any stronger than anybody else's? You both are arguing with no proof. He has no proof. So he takes possession of it, right? So Nardian adduced support for this statement. And how do we know? The Tane Rabbi Chia Tane Nabraisa, Gazlan Shel Rabim Lab Shmei Gazlan. One who steals from the public is not considered a robber. Why? He cannot be forced to return the stolen item. But what is, again, does not take from the public. It's in usual sense rather stealing from the public. Here refers specifically to a case such as discussed by Rav Nachman. It doesn't mean that you can go take a garbage can that's owned by the city. It means if there is hefker, something that is non-ownership. Nobody's claiming, even if someone claims, there's no proof of ownership of something laying in the public's eye, and someone takes it, that's not considered a
Doesn't have to sit there for 30 days first?
Not necessarily.
Right, so,
Also,
No,
man.
it's in
The
Yerushalayim.
$100 bill on the
Like if
street's not gonna
someone
sit there for very long.
Well, in Mashurim, if someone loses a hat, they build a little house for it and they leave it there for 30 days.
They build a house for a hat?
So the rain doesn't get on it. They build a little shelter for it, or they put plastic on it,
Till today?
and then for 30 days or so. And if no one claims it, then they already know.
Well, the way that
Guy
certain
gets it.
movable items back in the time where usually you had an obligation to go call it out in public and say that I found this item.
Right.
And then you'd have to come, people would be able to come and prove that.
Yeah,
rather
like
than-
under-
That's how you're
Deductible
supposed to do it here too. If you just find a suitcase full of money, you're supposed to go to the cops and say, hey, I found this.
Exactly.
I'm talking about a hat, so.
This
You have to hand
Case
it
of
over
money,
here,
I'm keeping
right?
it.
In that case, you hold on to it until
Defensive
somebody has a
damage way
valid
around
claim,
for
and
the-
you're responsible
by
for
the
it too, like if
surrogates
it's a
rule.
cow.
The if you're a defensive end, you stand at the end front of your property,
With
right?
the hat, they're thinking that the guy's gonna come back to that spot to look for
True.
it, that's why.
True.
If you take it
True.
home, he's gonna be like, oh, it blew away.
And stuff of that nature, yeah, generally
Yeah.
you should. It's not that you necessarily build a house, but there is a place that you usually take like lost and found to. You try and wait for people to come get what was rightfully theirs. Rav Ashi said, "La'olam shmei gazlan." Actually, the outsider is always considered a robber, and he must vacate the property. Omai lo shmei gazlan. Why is he not considered a gazlan? He's not considered a robber. Sorry. Then what is the meaning of the Brisa statement that he's not considered a robber? Shleinitin leheshavei. It means that he cannot be restored to its owner.
They don't
So-
take it from him, right?
Huh?
They don't take it from him, right? He holds on to it, he's just a known thief.
He's just a known thief.
What's the
You don't give it to anybody else,
But
but he's not considered like a legitimate claimant to the
Right,
property.
but you can't take it from him unless you have somebody. give
Right,
it to you.
because again, we have to go back to the original case. What happened? This guy says it's his forefathers. This guy says it's his forefathers. Their claim is that somewhere in the family, this property was mine. Some guy moves in and he says, "Hey, I'm here now," because your claims don't mean anything, so I'm here. So most people are going to say, you know what? Why is his claim any different than anybody else? Why is the court saying that? Because we know that if it was truly owned by somebody, it's inevitable that evidence will come to the surface to show it. So we're not going to kick this guy out in favor of somebody that we don't know yet that actually has a claim to that property. So Rav Ashi says, if someone does that, which let's call him an ambulance chaser, a property chaser, right? We're going to label him a thief. We're not kicking him out, but he's going to be a well-known thief. And reputation means something. Period. Yasher koach. Did we get to 2 dots? 2 dots. Went from 2 dots to 2 dots. There was a night kollel in Chicago, and these 2 elder men, Mr. Moskowitz, like they're Moskowitzes from Chicago, their father, and Mr. Kosofsky, his kids all over the place, and they would come in with their Schottenstein Gemaras, and they'd walk through the whole shul, 2 dots, 2 dots. Their job was to get from 2 dots on one page to 2 dots on another page, no matter where, no matter how. That was their thing. So, we're keeping that tradition going as often as we can.
Are those the boundaries of the daf?
Not necessarily. Usually it means, so in this case it means that we're finished with what we discussed right now. We're going to tackle another aspect of the Mishnah we discussed a few pages ago. But in like yesterday, it was a similar idea, just a different direction.